Hey, it's Mev here, and I finally remembered my YouTube password. And just in time too, because I bought the new MacBook Air and I want to share how I set it up and what apps I use daily. So I went for the 15-inch option, and I'm glad I did as I prefer a bigger screen, but it's also thin and light enough that I can carry it around with me. I made a bold choice of going with a midnight blue colour, and it's true what they say about it being a fingerprint magnet. It also shows dust, so there's going to be a lot of cleaning involved. I upgraded the RAM to 32GB and the storage to 1TB because I plan to keep this for a long time, and I'm interested to see just how much I can push it with some creative work. But yeah, let's just dive right into the setup. Dark mode is very on trend with being a developer, and it's the first thing that I gravitate to changing. I also changed the icons in the dock to dark mode too. And to tie it all together, I set the background to my favourite wallpaper. It's the one that comes with the Mac, it's called Pro Black. So I'm not too bothered about the new liquid glass effect. It's alright, but there's one thing I dislike about it, and that's the highlights around the edges of windows and icons. Having a dark wallpaper really makes it stick out, but it's not as bad on lighter backgrounds, and because of that I'm considering using this wallpaper. I use multiple desktops all the time, and it's so easy to switch between them when you're using a trackpad or a magic mouse. Honestly, it's probably the feature I use most often. Oh yeah, this click to show the desktop is really not for me. I reckon it's quite bold for Apple to leave this on by default. It's something I turn off, but I'm interested, do any of you leave it on? The way I like to reveal the desktop is by using hot corners. This lets you trigger a certain action when your mouse pointer hits a certain corner of the screen. I just have it set to the bottom right. I don't change too much in terms of the trackpad. I turn on tap to click and I set the haptic feedback to light. The firm option sounds a bit too loud for me. Now there's a lot of window snapping tools out there, and honestly they're all great. I used to use the one that comes with Raycast, but since Apple introduced their own version of it with macOS 26, I now just use that. It's quite bad actually, works half the time, and you can't customize things like the padding, but I'm getting by with using it for now. Another feature Apple just introduced with their recent update is forcing a battery limit when charging. I set it to 80% because most of the time my laptop's plugged in. They only had this option before, but I found it to be hit and miss, and it didn't really help with my MacBook Pro's battery health over time. It's at 82% now. There's two widgets I add to the menu, a timer, which I use for the Pomodoro technique, and the weather, to see what season England decides to change between every hour. I also show the battery percentage rather than just the icon. I'm not a fan of this startup sound and these sound effects, so I make sure to turn them all off. And the last thing I change in terms of system settings is Spotlight. I limit the scope of what it can search. I specifically turn off photos because it's so annoying when I use Spotlight to maybe add some numbers together, and as I'm doing that, a bunch of photos show up because Apple decides to internally name all of their photos that have been synced from the iPhone with random numbers and letters. So they just appear with almost every search, so I'll just turn a bunch of that off. On the desktop, I usually add the battery widget. Setting it to large reveals all of your Apple devices, and I like to add the main hard drive to the desktop. And to keep the desktop looking clean, I add a temp folder. It really does help manage the desktop. When I take a screenshot, I straight away throw it in this folder. And when the desktop builds up over time and it's flooded with random files, I just select it all and dump it in and organize it later. Just take a look at the temp folder on my MacBook Pro. Did you know you can adjust the animation speed of the dock when you set it to auto hide? By default it's quite slow, but using this command you can make it instant. I prefer it this way as it feels more snappier, but yeah, most of these apps can also go. Talking about apps, here's some that I use. I'm going to start by downloading my favourite one, and that's Grab to Text. It's so simple in terms of providing only one functionality, and that's to convert a screenshot of something that has text into your clipboard history. It's really handy if you work from home and remote into a machine at work. I use it to grab an email address or some code if I need to use it locally. GIFski converts screen recordings into GIFs. I use this one mainly when I'm documenting tools because, let's face it, no one likes to read lots of text, so I found that having some GIFs to visually explain it helps. I'm not a fan of Apple's tab view. If you have, say, 2 Safari windows open and try to tab between them, only one shows up. It's stuff like this that makes no sense, so I use Alt-Tab. It's free and offers a lot of customization, and I can tab between multiple Safari windows using it. App Cleaner deletes an application. Rather than dragging an app directly into the bin, I drag it into App Cleaner, and what it does is it searches the system for any folders or files that belong to that app, and it removes them too so they're not hanging around and taking space. And yeah, that covers the majority of my setup. It's quite a vanilla setup. I don't add too much. I'll show you my dev setup in the next video. For now, I'm going to continue using this Mac and potentially bring you a review of it, so why not stick around and I'll see you later.